Rent to Rent Explained. Hi, I'm Chris from Property Abundance, and in this video we are going to deep dive the concept of rent to rent, which is one of the most popular forms of no money down property investing that there is out there. But there's so many people getting it wrong. Okay, there's tons of people that do the wrong things or try and do it in the wrong order and try and skip steps. So in this video, I'm going to give you a play-by-play breakdown of firstly how not to do rent to rent, and then how you can make over £1,000 a month per property that you don't even have to own when you get this process right. And I'll give you that process as well. Now, throughout this video, if you like what you see, if you're finding it useful content, please make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to our YouTube channel here as well to make sure that you don't miss any of these regular updates. Now, we're recording these videos every couple of days to bring you the freshest, most up-to-date content from the UK property industry of what's working in my own 7-figure business so that I can help you build yours as well. So let's dive into it, shall we? The first one is rent to rent done wrong. Okay, so how not to do it. This is where you maybe rent a house and let's say you pay £1,000 a month for that house. Okay, so you're renting this house from the owner. You then try and find someone who's going to rent the exact same house, but maybe they're going to pay £1,100 a month. Oops, too many zeros. £1,100 a month to the owner. Now, in doing that, you've created a £100 markup. Okay, so there is a profit margin there. But what value have we created? Now, this is the wrong way to do rent-to-rent investing, but this is the traditional way, where you take a property, charge a markup, and rent it out to the exact same person that could have rented it in the first place. No value add, you're not really benefiting anybody here, you're just trying to make some money. Okay, so when you don't add value, you also aren't going to make that much. How many of these deals are you going to have to do to actually earn a decent income? What, like, to make £2,000 a month, you're going to have to do 20 of these deals. If you want to make £3,000 a month, add another 10. Okay, it's not a very scalable model. On top of that, it's a very risky model. Okay, let me explain. If you're only making £100 a month profit and you have a single month where you don't have a tenant, you're not just losing the £100 profit that you would have made, but you're also losing the £1,000 you've still got to pay in rent. So you're actually now, if you have one void, you're minus £1,000. So this strategy is going to take you a further 10 months of renting that property, dealing with the tenants, dealing with any maintenance issues, making sure it runs smooth before you make that money back. Now, this is why I say it's a wrong thing. All you need is 1 month void, or a boiler to blow up, or something to go wrong, some costly maintenance expense, and you've wiped out your entire year's profit. So, if that's the wrong way, what's the right way? Okay, instead of doing this, where we rent out the exact same house, we need to use an application strategy, specifically a high cash flow application strategy. So, let's take that same house, but instead of then just renting it out as the exact same property, we have two options. Option number one is we create what's called an HMO. Now, an HMO is where instead of renting out the entire house as one single unit, we rent out and we create individual bedrooms within that property, and we rent those out, all bills included and fully furnished. So that means anybody moving in doesn't have to worry about paying their electric, doesn't have to worry about paying their water, and doesn't have to worry about buying really expensive furniture because it's already provided. Now, why would you do that? It's because you make a lot more from the house. Okay, so you're actually changing the use of the house here from a single dwelling to a multiple dwelling or a house of multiple occupation. And by doing that, you create this margin, this big uplift in value. Now, the average we want to be aiming for every rent-to-rent deal, and this is average, by the way, some will be more, some will be less, but the average we want to be aiming for is £1,000 per month profit. So that means after we've paid the rent for the owner and after we've paid the bills on behalf of the tenant, what's left is £1,000 a month for us. Now, that's application strategy number one. The second one is called service accommodation. And again, this is changing the use of the property. Now, instead of renting out the entire apartment or the entire house or dividing it into separate rooms, we are going to add value in a different way here. So here, instead of renting it by the month, we're going to rent it out by the night. Now, by doing that, again, we provide a much higher level of service because not everyone can walk into, in fact, no one really, can walk into an estate agent and say, hey, I'd like to rent a house for 3 weeks, please. They'll tell you, I'm sorry, we can't help you. So then those people are stuck, they have a problem. Now, because there's very few people, or it's not a mainstream strategy to provide this kind of accommodation short term for a few weeks at a time, that means you can charge a lot more for it. Not only that, but you're adding value to these properties because you're fully furnishing them. You're adding all the soft furnishings so people can simply move in and start to live there as if it was their own home. Fully furnished kitchen, fresh sheets on the bed, etc. Now again, by doing that, by changing the use and adding that value, again, we want to be aiming for an average of £1,000 per month. So if each property, using this rent-to-rent strategy combined with a high cash flow application strategy, can make you £1,000 a month, you can see how this becomes a strategy that creates financial freedom very, very quickly. Because if the average salary in the UK right now is about, I think it's like 36,000, that equates to what, like £3,000 a month before tax, so after tax, what, like 2,200, 2,300-ish? So only 2 or 3 of these deals can replace the income that you have from your salary. So this becomes a very leverageable, and it can buy your time back very, very quickly. Now, by the way, if you're finding this kind of content useful, please hit that like button. Please comment which is your favorite strategy, HMOs or serviced accommodation. And make sure you subscribe to this channel to make sure that you don't miss out on this kind of content on a regular basis. Because everything that I do in my own 7-figure property business ends up here on this whiteboard with me in front of this camera. So make sure you subscribe if you want to stay up to date on what's working in today's market. So let's go through these one by one, shall we? Let's actually dive into some of the details here, because that's our concept at a high level, but let's actually explore some of the details. So the first one I want to go through is the step-by-step process for HMOs. Now the first thing we have to do is find the right area to invest. Okay, we've got to find an area with a lower paid demographic, so people will be looking to make savings on their accommodation. Okay, places where they don't want to have to rent an entire apartment, they don't want to have to pay their own bills and council tax and Wi-Fi and water and electric and so on and so on. So instead, we find an area with a lower paid demographic, areas with lots of retail jobs, warehousing jobs, manufacturing jobs. Okay, these kind of jobs that pay less money, because that creates a demand for HMO rooms where people can save money on their accommodation so they have more to live on to buy their food and to actually live a bit. So firstly, we find that area. Secondly, we need to find, number one, area. Secondly, we need to find the house. Now, the ideal house for an HMO is a 3-bed property with extra reception rooms available. Now look, if we are charging per room, then obviously the more rooms that are available to rent, the more you're going to charge. But we want to try and find rooms that we can convert rather than just renting a 5-bedroom house, for example. Because if we rent a 5-bedroom house that has 5 bedrooms, well then we're going to pay 5-bedroom house prices. So it's far more profitable to actually rent a smaller house that has reception rooms and do the necessary conversion works. Yes, you have to invest money to do that, but the return on investment is over 100%, and I'll show you that calculation a bit later. So we need to find a house, ideally 3 or 4 bedrooms, but with multiple reception rooms that can be converted into bedrooms fairly simply. Number 3 is we need to check the numbers. Okay, now what do I mean by that? Well, firstly, I mean we need to know how much we can rent rooms out for. We have to do what's called a competitor analysis. See what other people are renting out rooms for in the area, and then that will give us the intelligence that we know, or the intelligence of the market to know what we can afford to rent out our rooms for. So we've got a clear understanding of how much we're going to make. So we need the room numbers, and then we need to plug that into a profitability analyzer. Okay, to work out if we charge, let's say 5 bedrooms at £600 a month per room times 5 equals £3,000 a month in rental income. Let's say we're paying rent at £1,500 and then bills on top of that. Works out around about £100 a room for bills and HMOs. So take off another, 5 bedrooms at £500. Leaves us with £1,000 profit. So we need to do that calculation. Okay, we need to work out, well, if I can rent rooms out for this amount, how much can I afford to pay in rent once I take off my bills at around about £100 per room? How much profit am I going to be left? And this is how we remove a lot of the risk from our investing before we actually sign for anything, is by forecasting exactly what we're going to make. Then we need to obtain permission. Okay, permission. Now what do I mean by this? I mean the owner has to consent to you doing this. You can't just walk into an estate agent, say, hi, I'd like to rent a house, please, and then start renting it out to people by the room. That's called an illegal sublet. Okay, so we need to do this legally. Now, if you want to have a legal sublet, you've got to have the owner's permission. So we need to get their permission for you to be able to sublet that property. The next thing we'll need to do is modify that property. Now with HMOs, this is a very highly regulated industry. There are fire regulations we have to abide by. There's the Landlord and Tenant Act, the Housing Act, all these different regulations that we need to comply with. So we'll need to modify the house and make sure we've got fire doors on bedrooms, smoke alarms in all the bedrooms that are hardwired and interlinked. Make sure we've got emergency lighting set up, make sure there's heat alarms in the kitchen, and make sure you're registered with the PRS. So you need to modify the property so that it is in line with the compliance of the regulations that are involved here. Now, once you've made that modification, you'll then need to apply for a license. Okay, now that license will basically check that you've done these modifications. There'll also be a fit and proper test in there to make sure that you are a reliable person, you don't have a criminal record or stuff like that, or you haven't been blacklisted as a slum landlord or something like that. So they do these checks on you and the house to make sure that you are credible and that the house is set up in a safe way. And then if everything checks out, once you've paid your license fee, around about £1,000 for a license fee, then you'll get your license to operate. Now, once you've applied for it, you can crack on until they tell you otherwise. Okay, so the main thing is that we need to get the application in at this point. Then we need to start to rent it out. Okay, so we need to advertise our property, we need to find some tenants, fill our rooms, and then start charging them a monthly rent. And then after you've paid your rent and your bills, you're then making £1,000 a month per property that you have on this model. Now, by the way, let me know in the comments if you'd find it useful if I recorded a future video on how you can find these tenants and how you can always make sure that you have more tenants than you ever need. Let me know in the comments if you think that video would be useful. I need some inspiration for what I'm going to record next for you. So make sure you let me know in the comments what you want to learn about as well. And by the way, if you found this useful as well, please like, comment and subscribe to this channel to make sure you stay up to date with all these top tips from us. Now, the second strategy, or the second way that we can do this, that we want to break down step by step, is our other application strategy, which is serviced accommodation. Now again, we still need to find the right area. Okay, we've still got to find the area to invest. But what makes a good HMO area is very different to what makes a good serviced accommodation area. Now, a good serviced accommodation area is an area that has high transient demand. Now, by that, I mean people want to come to the area, stay for a specific purpose before going home again. Okay, so this could be people like tourists, business travelers, building contractors, people who are traveling like I was when I was at PwC, when I was a corporate visitor. So I was going to the same place every Monday to Friday for weeks and weeks on end. So we want to find an area that has this demand. Once we've found that area, again, we need to find the right house. Okay, so we need to find the house that's going to appeal to the type of demand that we find. Now, if we find that there's lots of business travelers, for example, then we would find a house that's going to be higher spec, has lots of space for work areas, has private bedrooms so people aren't having to share twin beds and things like that. We want to make sure that the house appeals to our end audience. Okay, now that's very different to if it's, for example, contractors that you want to appeal to. There, they tend to travel in bigger teams and they tend to be more cost sensitive. So they'll be looking for ways to save money. They'll be looking for the opportunity to have twin bedrooms instead of private bedrooms, if it means they can travel on a bigger budget. So we want to find the house that's going to appeal to the type of audience we've identified in our area. We then also need to check our numbers. Now again, very different way of checking numbers compared to HMOs. Here, we need to be checking how much are people prepared to pay per night for that type of accommodation. We're going to use sites like Airbnb to go and do a competitor analysis, see what other people are charging so we understand how we're going to fit into the market. And then again, we need to obtain permission from the owner. Okay, you can't just rent somebody's flat and start putting it on Airbnb and renting it out by the night. It's illegal. So we need their permission to sublet the property, but specifically, we need their permission to run short lets in this property. So once we've got that permission, we then need to set up the property. Now here, it's very different. There's no modification required. Well, there could be modification required, but there's no legal modification required at the moment, and there's no licensing as there is for HMOs at the moment. But that's at the moment. You know, in the future, I very strongly believe that SA will become a licensed area of their industry, and I believe you'll need a license to operate short lets. We're not there yet. It doesn't exist right now. I suspect it will in the future. But right now, all we need to do is set it up with our end client in mind. That's business users. Make sure there's a nice desk area that's well lit where they can sit and do Zoom calls. If you're thinking about contractors, make sure you've got like nice comfy living areas with good sports packages on the TV. Think about what does your end user want. Okay, if you're trying to appeal to families, have you got a cot in there? Have you got a high chair? Think about what they need, put it in your apartment. Then we need to market our property. Now there are literally thousands of ways that you can do this. The most basic is advertising on sites like Airbnb, Booking.com, Expedia, Vrbo, these mass market engines. Okay, these are the supermarkets of the travel world. Now, if you did nothing else other than advertise on Airbnb, Booking.com and Vrbo, that's what the average does. So you can expect average results. Okay, that's where you'll be getting around about your £1,000 a month. But you're going to experience a surplus of demand in summer where you get loads and loads of bookings, and you're going to experience a very slim demand in winter where you get no bookings or a few bookings, but at less profitable margins. So your income starts to do this. Okay, you hit highs in the summer and you're out celebrating, popping champagne, going, I'm making loads of money! And then you get to winter and it's January and you're going, shit, I've got no bookings! So we need to be somewhere in the middle. Now the way that we can stabilize this out is by marketing more widely. Okay, the more widely you market your SA, the more widely you put your property on different sites and start creating different marketing strategies, that is how you start to smooth this out a bit so you get much better overall income throughout the year. So make sure you market your property. Now, again, this is quite an in-depth topic actually, and we could do an entire content session just on this. So again, let me know in the comments if you find that useful, if you'd like some ideas for how you can get more bookings for your SA, if you think that would be a good future content video, let me know in the content there. Now look guys, hopefully you found this really, really interesting. If you have and you want some help, we have actually set aside some time in our Times Diary to do some consultation calls completely free. And on this session, we will help you get clear on what your next step should be based on where you are right now, what resources you have, what time you have, and what you want to achieve. So if you want to grab one of those free consultation or strategy sessions with my team, check down below in the description. You'll find the link there. Click on that link, select the time that works best for you, and my team will help you get clear on your next steps to building your property business, whether it's rent to rent that you want to work with, or you're interested in some of the more advanced strategies that involve investing your own money, then make sure you book that call in and speak to my team so we can help you get clear on how you can progress that forward. Other than that, guys, hope you found this really useful. Please like, comment and subscribe. Let me know which is your favorite strategy, HMOs or serviced accommodation, which one appeals to you most, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.